custom wall here. Again, just a screenshot if for some reason you didn't get a chance to finish it, with all the different materials and thicknesses. Make sure, especially down here, you change this to thermal because it was listed as something else. And when you're running reports in Revit, it wants to understand what things are. If you remember from Google Earth, this wall only exists on the second, third, and fourth floors. The first floor is just curtain walls. And the steel on the outside is split into smaller panels. So before I go crazy dropping walls in here, I want to do a little bit of setup specifically for dividing things into parts and segments. So if I come to my north elevation, that's good to go. Where it's the two sides of the buildings where we have the retaining wall. If I come to the west, I'm missing some vital information here because my elevation point is not within my scope box. So I'm going to come back to level 3, and lo and behold, it's down here. Just going to move this somewhere inside the scope box. I could have just expanded the scope box, but since we're working in such a small area, that didn't seem like the best solution. All right, now I've got this. I'm going to do most of my work in the north. So if you remember from Google Earth, they're kind of split into 6 sections, right? You got one down the middle, and then you got 2 equally spaced between the floors. All of this concrete is exposed, both the columns and the beams, so all of it fits inside what's now white. So I'm going to come to the Architecture tab. So this is grids 1 and 2, 2 and 3. I'm going to come to Reference Plane. I'm going to snap to the midpoint here. And I'm going to name this one 1, 2 because it's between 1 and 2. And now I'm going to copy it. And I'm just going to use grid 1 to grid 2. That's giving it some random 1, 3. I'm going to call it 2, 3 because that's what makes sense for my brain. Whatever you're going to be able to remember, because remember we're going to do this again on the west side. So however you can remember, because once we start dividing it into parts, you're going to associate all these different reference planes to the steel part. Alright, I want to evenly space reference planes. I know that the handy dandy aligned dimension trick that we can use in a lot of cases does not work with reference planes. So I'm going to start with a couple model lines. I'm going to pick grid A because I'm looking at numbers. I'm just going to randomly make one. Copy it, doesn't really matter where because I don't know the dimensions yet. So now I can do align dimensions, pick the bottom of this beam, my first model line, my second model line, and the top of this beam. Now I just want to say equidistant. Great, model lines are in the right place. I'm going to delete these because I don't want them anymore. And now I can go make a couple more reference planes. I'm going to make them go past the model line. I'm going to call this one T1 because in my brain it's the first of the top sections. I'm just going to copy this down. I'm going to go from here to this model line. And my brain wants this one to be B1 because that's the bottom. Alright, now I can just grab these without copying my model lines. Holding Control and copy these up. And to keep the video short, I'm not going to rename all these, but you would want to come in because this is just going to randomly assign names. B3, B2, so that doesn't even go in the order you want. So I would call this T2, B2, T3, B3. Alright, I've got all this. What now? I want to come in here and just do a big old drag to go over all that. I want to filter out everything other than reference planes. I'm going to say OK. Now I'm going to switch to my level 3. I'm going to say mirror draw axis. Now if I come into this corner and do a 45 degree, I should have all that stuff repeated in my west. Again, I'm going to try and keep this video short. You're going to want to come in, rename this to be, I would probably do AB for that one and BC for this one. And then I'd probably call this B1A, T1A, just so that I know that this is the other side, but same level. All right, that is set up. That will make our lives a little bit easier. Now I'm going to come back to level 3. And like I said, these columns are exposed. So I'm going to come into structure, wall. Right now it's got this weird base offset. So I'm going to say it goes up to level 4 with no offset. Oh, great. All right, that's fine. We'll fix it later. I'm just going to come from column to column. Okay, just going to click OK for this warning message. Now I'm going to click on the actual wall. And I'm going to fix that. I'm going to say it goes up to level 4, starts at level 3 and has 0 offset. So let me see how that looks in 3D. It looks okay, but remember this beam is supposed to be exposed. So you could either give it a top offset of -18 inches, or you can use your shape handle to snap to this. I'm just going to come to my north view. And I'm going to do it a third way. I'm going to click Align. I'm going to click the bottom of this beam at the top of that. And you can see I was talking about in class the perforated steel. This one happens to be perforated. That's a little aggressive. Probably want some smaller holes. So if I come into Manage, go to my materials, and I just look for my steel. I think I used this one, steel carbon. Yeah, see it's got the cutouts checked. So if I could do this drop down, I've got staggered circles on with a pretty big diameter. So I'm going to change this down to and we got something a lot smaller. All right, I got my height correct. I've got my materials. Now I'm going to go back to my level 3. You need to make sure if you're not seeing all this stuff, it's because your detail level is on medium or coarse. If you go to Fine, now we can see I've got my wood, I've got my insulation, I've got my CMU, more insulation, air, and steel. I want to move this so that the back of my CMU is on the corner. So I'm just going to click on my wall. I'm going to say move. All right. Now I can just highlight this, copy it using my grids. Now if I highlight these both and do the diagonal, I'll show you what'll happen. Well, I'll just do it with the one for now. And if I say mirror, draw axis, and do this diagonal like I did with the grid lines, now Revit is trying to connect these walls because they're touching. We don't really want that. So I'm just gonna, before I do anything, I'm gonna drag this back far enough that when I mirror it, they're not touching. And now I'm gonna hold Control, mirror, draw axis. All right, now I've got these, and we can do the next step. Let me just make sure everything stayed correct. Great. Brilliant. Just have some weird transparency going on here. All right, I'm going to come back in here. And what we want to do now is we want to take this wall and turn it into parts. And once we do that, we can start using shape handles to drag things into place. Again, we're going to leave this outside exposed, but inside we're going to cover with insulation and wood. So I'm going to click all of them really. And right here is this create parts thing. So it's just to the right of measure and below create assembly. And now if I come in, you can see this is an individual thing. No shape handles. Where'd they go? Well, unfortunately, one by one, you have to come check. And now I can drag this and snap it to here. No, this is an air layer. It's not going to do anything, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to click on my next thing of insulation, make a shape handle, drag it over, click on my CMUs, shape handle, and I'm going to keep going with this. Now, you might be wondering, do I need to make all of these parts? And the answer is yes, because we have to divide the surface on all the steel. And if I left this as a wall, that wouldn't work. So even if I only drag, so I'm not going to bother with shape handles on this one. I've already got them over here. I don't need them to meet at the grid line. I can just pick on each piece. Now this interior column's covered. I don't have to muck about with fixing that one. Now I come over here again. Unfortunately, it's each individual part, which is part of why I just try and do it on the corner walls. So this is going to take a second. Because we lined up the edge of our CMU with our column, it shouldn't create any conflict here. And now these last bits, I'm just going to have end right at the wall rather than keep going. So let me add a shape handle. Shape handle. All right, I have all this stuff. I've turned it into parts. What do we do from there? If I come to my 3D view, actually let me go to my north elevation and let's see, do I have wall here? Yeah. So you want to be on a view where you can see your walls. If all you see is your parts, like here, you have two options. One is I could change this to architectural. And now I have both parts and walls. And even though part is the first thing that's coming up, I know a wall is there because if I come in to drop a window, it will let me. If I tried to do that with just parts, there's nothing to host it. So if I want to do this ahead of time, before I even make it into parts, well, no, it's already made into parts. So, or no, we just got the grids. But before I divide this, if I want, the nice part about this is, I'm just going to switch to hidden line just so it's easier to see. I can use this, and I can go with align dimensions. So if I decide I want the top of this window to go all the way up here, and the side to be here, and I want this side, oh, sorry, wrong click, let me undo. First click is always where you want it to go. Second click is what you're trying to move. So now I've already got a window neatly fit into this grid pattern. Unfortunately, that doesn't work once we get to the skylights above, but as long as we're just working with fixed windows on these walls, you can do it. Remember, all of these need to be divided as far as steel, and you need to have a total of 4 different layouts. So if you want to even just mirror this on another one to be on this side, or do the center window, however you want to do it, at least 4. So now I'm going to come into my 3D, and I'm going to pick parts. So this is my steel. And you can see this divide parts. So I'm going to click on it, and there is a sketch mode, but it's a lot harder to do live, and they have to extend beyond. So we're just going to use intersecting references. And I'm going to switch from levels to reference planes. And this is between 2 and 3. And it's top 1 and bottom 1. So I'm going to click apply. Okay. And now you can see this is where it's going to divide them. I'm going to click OK because I'm happy with it. And now each of these pieces of steel is its own part. And there's a split. But since the window's there, it doesn't matter. So I'll show it again on this one. I'm going to say parts, divide parts, and this time I'm not going to have a window. I'm just going to have all 6 of them be steel. Intersecting references, reference planes, and this one is 1, 2 with T1 and B1. And this is why I said make labeling that makes sense to you, because by the time you're done, you're going to have a lot of them. I'm going to click OK. And now I'm not going to do this side. I'm just going to show here. Before I start copying these up, though, we need to somehow connect these wandering steel parts to the CMUs. And if you look online, there's lots of different hardware out there. Most of them are going to be some sort of T shape against here, and then another thing here that comes out and then clips on. We're going to keep it simple though, and we're just going to do kind of a really tall, skinny C shape that goes from the CMU to the back of this. So I'm going to go architecture, component, model in place, and we'll call this a structural connection. Okay. It's going to be an extrusion. I do not want it to be earth. That's left over from the last thing. I want it to be regular steel, not the perforated. So if I just do regular steel that doesn't have the cutouts, say OK. And now I'm going to come in here. It probably wouldn't be right on the edge, but it'd be close. So that was 1 3/4 inches. Alright, and now I'm just going to do an offset. I'm going to use pick lines. I'm going to say an offset, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I've got to quit typing inch when it's already there. And now this wants to do the whole piece of steel. If I hit tab, it'll only do the line I made. Same thing here. It's trying to do the entire CMU. I hit tab. Had to do it a couple times there. Trim. Trim. All right. My walls are, well, I'm just going to use the shape handles. I'm maybe do 10 feet to start. Oops, where'd it go? And I am going to copy these. So after I click OK, I'm going to say Edit Work Plane, and I'm going to disassociate, because these are going to get copied up, and if I don't tell Revit that they only belong on level 3, we're going to have problems. So now before I finish, I'm going to come to my north elevation. Oh, 10 feet was an okay guess. I'm going to come all the way up to the top though, and I'm going to finish. Now I want to mirror this. So remember, we got this segmented, so we need one on either side here, and then we need one all the way on the other edge. So I'm going to click on the structural connection. I'm going to say mirror pick axis. Now I'm going to click on it again. I'm going to say mirror draw axis. I'm going to see if I can't find a midpoint here. Of that part. It is not cooperating in this view, so let me try coming in here and seeing, no, again, no mid. That's all right. I'm going to find it again. Come back in here. Again, I'm not going to keep doing this, but we do one over here. If I wanted to hit tab, I could find it, cooperate. I'm not close enough to it. My mouse is being finicky. Let me go to wireframe. And now I could say mirror draw axis. So imagine I've done that everywhere. Over here though, obviously we're not going to go through the window, so you'd use the shape handle, pull those down. Now I want to copy everything. I'm going to come in here. You need to do this from a view that has both walls and parts, or it's not going to work. So I'm going to grab this, hit filter. So I want my walls, I want my window, I want my structural connections, and my parts. I click apply. Now when I copy them up, let me unconstrain. You can see what happens is it's kept this middle divide because our grid AB or 1, 2 or whatever this is keeps going. So it's split in half, but I still have to come in, I have to find the part, and then I have to divide it again. I'll show it. This one, I'm going to click part, I'm going to say edit division, intersecting references, reference planes, so it's still T2, T1 and B1 are no good anymore. I'm going to switch those, click apply, okay, and now I'll say okay. Now I got my 6 again. So that's the process. 4 different designs between all of these. Copy it all the way up. Make your life easier.